Good evening. It has been called Canada's shame, and now Ontario is coming to its own painful reckoning on how this province treated Indigenous people. The Ford government is pledging $10 million to find the bodies of the young boys and girls who never made it home after being forced into residential schools.
For us, it's genocide. That's what took place. They wanted to wipe us out.
At least 426 children who attended residential schools in Ontario are known to have died, but that number is believed to be even greater.
Preliminary work done here in Ontario by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission has already identified 12 locations of unmarked burial sites in Ontario with varying levels of certainty and detail. We know there's likely more to this story.
Officials representing the government show up at your front door and take your children away from you. They're put in a faraway institution, like example, what we're standing in front of today, where there is much misery, neglect, and abuse.
It is a terrible chapter in Ontario's history that is not all that long ago. The last residential school in this province only closed in 1991.
This requires people to admit uncomfortable truths, and the burial of children in unmarked graves is a crime against humanity. And I would deem the perpetrators of these atrocities less human than us.
The deaths of young children at residential schools were always whispered about, but when the bodies of 215 children were discovered at a former residential school last month in Kamloops, BC, those whispers turned into a national outcry. The Ford government is now promising $10 million over 3 years to find unmarked graves, investigate and commemorate the Indigenous children.
There is painful but necessary work ahead, and we must confront what happened for reconciliation to be achieved.
The Premier is promising the effort will be led by Indigenous communities and that culturally sensitive mental health support will be available for residential school survivors and their families.
Shameful.
NDP MPP Saul Mamakwa says it is a start, but it is not nearly enough.
10 million over 3 years is a drop in a bucket. That amount is so insignificant. We welcome it, but I hope it's just only the beginning. I would like to see that, this government bring back the Indigenous curriculum writing.
Mamakwa believes it could take 10 long, painful years to do the work necessary to find the graves of all the missing children and identify them. And while it is a start, it does nothing to address justice for families. The calls grew today for an apology from the Catholic Church and for the Pope to come here to make it personally.